All right, folks. Thanks for your patience. Thanks for coming tonight. It's Tuesday night, 5 o'clock. Well, 5:08. We had a few technical difficulties, but I think we got all that sorted out. We got a great show for you tonight. What we do here is we get together every Tuesday and we talk about Bitcoin. At least that's how things got started. But it's kind of morphed into something a little bit grander than that. We have all kinds of philosophical discussions in here, all kinds of political discussions. You never know what's going to happen. We just kind of, I don't know, let things happen as they might. So tonight's show is called Even Banks Like Bitcoin. It seems that banks are getting on the Bitcoin bandwagon lately, some in a positive way, some in a negative way, but we're going to take a look at that. But let me just kick things off here. I'm going to share my screen with the folks at home. And we can go ahead and get started. All right, so everyone at home is taking a look at the same thing we see up here. So we're coming to you live from Ubud, right? The premier co-working space in all of Bali. Best internet in Bali. They are nice enough to give us this space to meet in, and they've been doing so for well over a year now. They're big supporters, and we get together here in person 5 o'clock every Tuesday. So for those of you who are watching online, if you find yourself in Bali, come join us in person. And for those of you in the room, if you find yourself in some other place a couple weeks from now, join us online. It's we always have a Google Hangouts going, and you'll find links to all this stuff in the show notes. So this is like a Bitcoin meeting, but when we're not together in person, we have this Facebook group. It's let me pull it up here. Bear with me. It's the Bitcoins in Bali group, and essentially what we do is while we're not together, we post Bitcoin stories here, have an online discussion, and then when we get together in person, we talk about it. So all of the highly controversial posts, we get together in person and hash it out. It's always very civil. Right, JP? Yeah, if you post something here, it's in all likelihood we will talk about it when we get together in person, and that's what we're going to do again tonight. We also have a conversation going on Twitter, and if you use hashtag Bitcoins in Bali, you can basically comment on anything that we're talking about here and get our attention via Twitter. All right, so let's take a look at the price. We are in Indonesia here in Bali, so let's take a look at the Indonesian price. This is Bitcoin.co.id, the Indonesian Bitcoin exchange, and right now one Bitcoin is worth 3,260,000 Indonesian rupiah. Yeah. I don't remember what it was last week, but what's interesting here is these guys, in the last 24 hours, their volume is over 300 Bitcoins. Usually they're around 150. Sometimes when things are crazy, they go around 250. So these guys are very happy. Of course, they make money when people are buying and selling Bitcoin. So it's good news for the folks in the Bitcoin business in Indonesia. But most people think about Bitcoin in terms of the US dollar price. US dollar price currently $226.05 per Bitcoin. And if you look, we can look at the graph for the last week. It's been a little bit boring. I think we were at 230 last week, and yeah. Now, one thing that's interesting is the volatility is constantly trending in a downward direction. If you look, this is the all-time volatility record, and you probably see Bitcoin going up and down. In the last 18 months or so, it's been as high as $1,200, as low as like $175. And if you're in the business of accepting Bitcoin, then well, it's a little bit of a rocky road. But if you were to draw a regression line through all of these peaks and valleys, there's an undeniable trend that volatility is going down. And presumably because the supply of Bitcoins is fixed or grows at a steady rate, eventually, things priced in Bitcoin should be very unvolatile. Wouldn't it be nice if all the things that we bought, didn't change price over the course of a lifetime? A hamburger was a hamburger, and a car was a car, a suit was a suit, etc. We don't live in that world today, but we can dream. We can dream. But anyway, in the last 30 days, we've seen an improvement in the volatility. Things have been going sideways for quite some time now. Here's a few other statistics on the Bitcoin network. You can see that we've had a very high transactions per hour lately. Have any of you guys been following this at all, or have any comments or thoughts on why we have such a high number of Bitcoin transactions lately? Yes. Yes.
What's that?
A stress test. Essentially, there's a big controversy within the Bitcoin community about the scalability of Bitcoin. Yes, there's a supposed limit of 7 Bitcoin transactions per second, which is woefully low if we want to service the entire planet in terms of their financial needs. So it's a well understood problem. What to do about it is a different story. And some people are attempting to force the issue by causing a stress test, which is basically bombarding the Bitcoin network with transactions. The Bitcoin network exists on the internet. It exists in the wild. And any Bitcoin node can accept any request from any other node on the network. So it was designed to live in the wild. It was designed to be very resilient. But there are some actors out there that are trying to find out what happens when you flood the network with transactions. They did this in kind of an ingenious way. They decided to give a bunch of Bitcoins away. I think 200 Bitcoins they decided to give away by publishing the private keys for those Bitcoins. So if you could get to their website and find a private key and basically use that private key to send the Bitcoin to your own address, then you could have a little bit of Bitcoin. And what that did was create a monster tidal wave of action on the Bitcoin network. Lots and lots of very tiny transactions. Well, that's designed to show the shortcomings of the current scalability problems with Bitcoin. So never a dull moment in the Bitcoin world. You can see that action that I was just describing here on this graph. This is the number of Bitcoin transactions per day. And let me scale this down a little bit. You can see, over the course of July, August, we're at about 50,000, and we spiked up to over 250,000 Bitcoin transactions in a single day. So it's the Wild West out there. Anybody can do anything. It's their right to publish as many transactions as they want on the network. And in principle, Bitcoin is supposed to survive. But, well, and it did survive. I think probably during that time, people probably experienced maybe some long transaction times. Their goal was to basically exercise what's called the memory pool, which is the backlog of transactions that don't make it into a particular block.
Do you know what the outcome was? What was the findings?
Well, they tried to, they wanted to make the mem pool, I think, 200 megs, and they only were able to get it up to about 50 megs. So I don't know if the stress test failed, wasn't enough, or if the Bitcoin network was just able to accommodate all of those requests anyway.
So what are these transactions?
They're very tiny transactions sending Bitcoin from one wallet to another.
I mean, like in general, like over the last.
Everything.
Oh, what causes Bitcoin transactions?
Yeah. I mean,
Well, all of the activity here in Ubud is probably like, yeah. I mean, there's like so much going on here. The Bitcoin economy is just taking off.
And
I mean, you can go to Kismet. You can go to Kismet. You can go to Seeds of Life. Cinnamon coffee. That's a. I mean, that's a.
Faces mobile bill.
Yes, I buy Pulsa.
There you go.
Can you still get a taxi with Bitcoin?
There's a Bitcoin taxi driver and homestays and hotels, but I don't think that that's responsible for hundreds of thousands of transactions, not yet. But there is, as you can see, there's an undeniable trend towards more and more transactions, and that is because Bitcoin is being adopted. I mean, the stress tests don't represent natural transactions, but there's lots of new gambling sites. You know, there's Satoshi Dice, which is a provably fair gambling site that uses Bitcoin, and payouts can be very tiny and high volume.
What incentives do like these restaurants or hotels or whatever have to use Bitcoin?
It's a coolness factor.
It's there are different reasons. There's the marketing boost, because Bitcoin is kind of a small pond.
Sure.
As soon as any business says we accept Bitcoin, it gets the attention of all Bitcoiners.
So let's say everyone uses Bitcoin. What incentive, I guess, would they have over that, over like a normal currency? I'm just trying to figure out, like, is Bitcoin going to be around? Like, will Bitcoin become a de facto currency or not? Because, like, I'm interested in what are.
If you knew,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, so that's why I'm like, that's also what I came last time, is trying to figure out, like, what incentive do people have to use Bitcoin other than, like, it's cool, right? Because, like, that won't last forever. And
If you're Indonesia or you're Greece,
Yeah.
can you imagine if the value of your currency is doing this,
sure,
that it might have some value?
totally.
We're looking for that
Yeah.
solution. We don't know that this one is it, but it's got the most play of anything going on so far.
Totally.
It
Right?
depends where you are, like who are you. If it's Bitcoin has you. But odds are it's about that. It could be anything from you're a farmer in some place where the nearest bank is a 3-day boat ride away. You have Bitcoin. You have a smartphone. Odds are, right? It could be that you want to buy drugs, and honestly, and it has to be there with a credit card. So, right? It could be that you simply don't want to have to deal with carrying all this change in your fucking pocket, having to denominate it and go to the thing, and then you take a hit when you transfer your money from USD to Indonesian for your bank. You don't want to deal with that. Bitcoin. Right? There's a whole bunch of depends where you're at. If you want to send money to friends, if you try to send money to friends via bank transfer.
Yeah, PayPal or Venmo.
Exactly. Even that takes a cut. Whereas Bitcoin, I can send you $1 million right now, and it'll cost me about 10 cents.
Sure.
There's some other issues though that are really compelling. You know, there's over 2 billion people on Earth that don't have a bank account, and they don't have a bank account because to service them is not profitable for a bank. Banks have lots of overhead, and if you're making $2 a day, then it's not interesting for banks to service you. But if you can send money for 6 cents per transaction, then it opens up whole new economic models. And so that's very compelling. It's also compelling that it's money that everybody who participates in using that money always knows exactly what the supply is. It's transparent in that way. There's no other currency that people use, except for other cryptocurrencies maybe, where the supply is always known. And if you've ever looked at a supply and demand curve, you know that supply is what determines, is 1/2 of what determines the price of everything. And every money that we use on Earth, we don't know what the supply is, so that means that the prices of everything are manipulated. It's a fantastic thing to give the people the power of money that they can validate on their own, that everybody can use. You know, the poor people can use it, and the people that are interested in a sound way of accounting for financial everything can use. So
Fascinating. Yeah, that's helpful.
okay. All right. Moving right along. Okay, so like I said, Bitcoin is experiencing a bit of an existential problem at the moment. Okay, to say the least. What's going on is, Bitcoin is software, right? But it's software that at this point, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people are interested in how this software works. The market cap for Bitcoin is over $3 billion US. So that's a lot of money. It's not a lot of money in the global scheme of things, but a lot of people have a lot of money at stake, and therefore people have opinions about how things need to change. And software needs to change. You know, when Bitcoin was a lot smaller, they had different concerns, and they made some technical choices. And now that Bitcoin is larger and we're having these transaction throughput questions, well, they need to make changes to the technology, but how do they do that remaining true to the decentralized nature of Bitcoin? You know, Bitcoin has, one of the reasons that it succeeded is because there's no entity behind Bitcoin. There's no company to sue. There's no server to shut down. It's like a force of nature. But how do you, in order to change a force of nature, you have to get all of nature to agree. And in this case, all of nature is all the people running Bitcoin software. Without boring you too much about that, there's a flame war going on, and there are several competing solutions to this transaction throughput problem that I described. One is represented by this line right here, and there's only 4%. This is what's referred to as Bitcoin Improvement Proposal 101, or Bitcoin XT, which is essentially a fork of the Bitcoin software, and it's making the choice to increase a technical parameter for block size to 8 megabytes, which would then allow for hundreds of transactions per second instead of 7. So now this solution needs to hit 75% consensus in order to be viable for the software to work at all. So Bitcoin is like a true democracy, right? Like, it's not about voting machines, it's about who's running what software. And right now there's a vote going on, and I'll scan back through time. You can see this proposal has peaked and is now on the wane. A week ago, it was at 10%, and before that it was at 13. I don't know what this is. The 8 megabyte idea? I thought that was 101. Am I wrong?
101 has more things inside.
So is 101 like dropping off totally in the last 24 hours? It's not even there. Well, in any case, the front runner is this Bitcoin Improvement Proposal 100, which proposes like a kind of a gradual move to this larger block size that allows more transactions. But that's all technical stuff. The interesting thing is, how do you govern something that is ungovernable, like supposedly ungovernable? How do you make changes? Like this Bitcoin thing is like this grand experiment in no leadership, or in like radical democracy. And but it is still technology. It's still software. Things need to change. How are the changes made? And so this is, Bitcoin was a cool invention, but however they decide to govern Bitcoin is like another invention. And the community itself is trying to figure out exactly what that looks like. So
who came up with the 75-25? Because they obviously got quite a big influence in deciding that. Like, how does that get voted on?
Well, these guys, this BIP 101 faction, essentially there are a couple of very high-profile developers. Some of the people that were involved from the very beginning kind of put their fists down and said, "This is the way it is. We're going to 8 megabytes. As soon as we're at 75, then we're gonna fork the chain. And if you're not coming with us, then you're going to be on a dead blockchain, right?" Because
why they trust in these developers to have to go to the community at hand, because they have a lot of power to say, "Let's do this," and then.
Well, they have a lot of power to propose something new, but unless people run that new software, it doesn't happen. And that's actually what has transpired, at least so far, is they put their fist down. They said, "We're going to take the ball and run with it. This is how it's going down. We're going to make the switch in January. Get on board." And they have peaked and now have, like, people aren't going there.
So if they do make the switch, they'll just die.
But yeah, their proposal dies.
Yeah.
But the 75% was arbitrary. That was their choice. And this BIP 100 is requiring, I think, 90% consensus.
And if it's at 30%, then everyone mutiny, or what would happen? Like, how do they?
No, it's status quo. it's status quo. But if we start to, we saw that transaction volume is growing, and if it continues to grow at the current pace, then you'll start to bump up against those transaction limits.
Yeah, no, I mean, because they decided that 75% was the threshold. So what if they decided that 60% is the threshold, 50%? Like, who decides that?
It's a design choice. It's a design choice. And then they have to make the case for that amongst all the developers and all the Bitcoin miners and everybody, every armchair quarterback on Reddit.
That's not very interesting, it's a very small group of people that come up with that.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I'm just curious how we're going to.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating. There's 5 developers that have commit capabilities for Bitcoin Core. So yeah, it's not as decentralized as people. They're all over the world. Yeah.
But they probably know people. I mean, it's not.
They're personalities. They're like rock stars in the Bitcoin world, such as they are. Nerd alert.
I have a question.
What'd you say? Nerd alert.
Like that's a reference, right? It's a reference. But how many? The miners run often their own cover software, right? Based on the reference. But how, do we know what percentage of the software running on the miners? How much of the software that's being run is from core or self-rolled?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think a lot of it, even if it's running core, it's very customized because when they were running the stress test, a lot of the miners ignored the transactions from the stress test because they built in their own mechanisms to deny based on the how much the fee was.
It makes it really resilient, kind of.
Well, yeah, I mean it's yeah, but I don't know. There's Bitcoin Core, the implementation in software, and then there's the actual specification. And from the beginning, the specification was the software. So people have re-implemented Bitcoin in other languages and things. But if you look at like TCP/IP, there's a formal specification document that anybody can go implement their own version of TCP/IP, and it will be compatible with everything else because it's been around for so long. But we're not really there yet with Bitcoin.
So what if I invest all my money in Bitcoin? And is there a way to shut Bitcoin down? Can I get I don't know.
Well.
Is it how do you take Bitcoin down?
Yes,
It's not
unplug all the power on the planet.
If that happens, we'll have bigger fish to fry than where our Bitcoins are.
There's actually, I watched this video, this guy's because we see so much that's pro Bitcoin, and this guy was a Bitcoiner, but he said, got to be realistic as well, because Bitcoin is such a important thing that threatens governments and monetary systems. So if you look at the size of Bitcoin, it's only $3 billion, and trillions of dollars in security estates at risk. So don't bet on it. It will continue to be unchallenged because you've got the world's most powerful forces that might act against it.
Yes, well said. So don't invest all your money yet.
Well, of course, but,
No, but
how would you shut it down? How would all the other systems go against Bitcoin?
You can imagine Bitcoin has been running since 2009, and there's $3 billion there just hanging out on the internet. And the Bitcoin protocol is open to any request from anybody at any time. So you have to imagine that every Russian hacker, every Chinese hacker, everybody every script kiddie, whoever looked at some code is probably trying to figure out how to bust it. And it's kind of miraculous. And I've been in software for a long time, and for software to run continuously for that long without a problem is pretty impressive. But it is software, and it's not just software. It's the sociological phenomenon that goes along with it. Because Bitcoin is open source software. You could start your own Bitcoin 2.0 like tonight, but it doesn't have the network effects and the brand and the momentum that goes along with it. So
I reckon the way to break it would be technical. It would be regulatory or monetary.
Yeah.
So like, if I wanted to break it on $1 trillion bank, it's $3 billion. I'll just keep. I'd buy up Bitcoin and then I'd dump it. I'd keep dumping it.
Yeah, because it's such a small market. If you had a few $100 million, you could push it around quite a bit.
But I feel it's being done already.
Yeah,
People still stay in it.
you can bet that's being done for sure.
Politics could shut it down. If the US government says no bank can deal with Bitcoin, it's like exchanging Bitcoin to dollars. I think that's it.
Well, it would definitely be a blow, but it wouldn't technically destroy Bitcoin. That would be just a blow to the sociological possibilities.
Yeah.
There's been a few countries who have done that.
Yeah, but I'm saying if the US does it, the Bitcoin price would be like 5 or 10, and then
Look at this
the
way.
trust would be lost.
The USA says you can't do crack in USA, but a lot of people do crack in USA.
Right, but yeah. That's a good way of explaining it. That's
I think to
that
your
is
point,
different.
can somebody shoot out a tweet right now?
I think to your point, that like now it's come to a point where even if banks weren't able to trade out money, like for example, if I had Bitcoin and you didn't, in order for you to get Bitcoin, you could buy something off me, and like I could now be a bank, right? So like I could take cash from you that I could spend somewhere, and like the people who own Bitcoin would essentially become like banks. But I feel like
Right, but the currency would be frozen. The dollars would be dollars and Bitcoins would be Bitcoins. And then in that case, that would be an extremely restrictive mode of operating.
You would still have a transfer. You can still find out how many dollars Bitcoin is worth. You just wouldn't be able to go to a bank or something to get the trade. You can go to a person. Yeah. Have you heard of my CD? So this is that. It's called what's it called? Like decentralized, whatever. The point is, let's say I want to sell, a Bitcoin, right? I just say on my CD, I'm selling Bitcoin. I'm here in Uber, right? You send me a message. I want to buy a Bitcoin. That's good. It's Nick Kismet. I give you a Bitcoin, give you money. Yeah, but you don't have to go through a bank. Yeah, right.
You're right, though. It would be a big blow to Bitcoin. It would probably just be marginalized. I don't know if it would disappear completely.
Yeah, exactly. It would
Yeah.
be so marginalized that it would just be a hobby.
Yeah.
Sure,
Well, it might serve other purposes. In other countries, like Argentina has had currency crisis after currency crisis, and there may become a marketplace for Bitcoin or some sort of niche use case in some country. You think about Greece. They had capital controls. They could only get 60 euro out of the ATM at a time. They were totally hamstrung. They couldn't pay international suppliers outside of Greece. If they had an alternative, they could have, things might have been different. If this happens again 50 years from now, maybe it'll be a better story.
Yeah.
Do
But we'll
you
see.
have an estimate of the currency market will tip or just like this?
You're gonna do
Because
that.
it's all like,
It's 100 monkeys. How many monkeys do we need?
Wasn't it the shit? We covered last week. The shit.
Oh, the Shemitah?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Shemitah is going to push us over. The Shemitah.
Shit.
The Shemitah is going to push us over. I don't know. I thought it was going to happen already, so don't listen to me. Wishful thinking distorts the logic. All right, so let's take a look at this. This is speaking of the future, this is a good segue. This was, Will, I think you posted this. This is predicting the future of Bitcoin in the next 25 years. Where are we? We're right here, just about, where the average block size is rapidly approaching the anti-spam limit, roughly doubling in size each year. So we're right here having this crisis, and what they're predicting is that we're going to up the block size, but we're going to have another existential crisis in 2020. But by 2024, we're going to have PayPal kind of throughput. By 2032, we'll have Visa level throughput. And I hope it happens faster than that because I don't have enough Bitcoins to last me to 2032. So I don't know, Will, can you call the people who made this graph and see if we can get an adjustment?
Oh, what do you want
I'm
to
not sure.
adjust it to?
I just want this to happen sooner. 2032. That's not. That doesn't work for me.
When I was running the numbers last year, it was like, this is going to take 15, 20 years, all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And we all think it's going to happen now, you know? And
Yes.
Well, what's the assumption underlying this for the timing?
It's. I think that for this graph, help me out, Will. But it's. I think it's the increase in the block size.
yeah, there was a big discussion. It started by Gavin Andreessen on what's that forum, Coin Talk or something.
Yeah.
And this is one guy that does a lot of analytics. And he was just pulling in data, top right, top left, data from blockchain info, and he got information from PayPal and whatnot, and just looked at extrapolating the current growth, and he came to this, right?
So based on the past performance of like how long it took to uptake PayPal and Visa and those kinds of things in the past?
No, I think it was based.
I think this is on current growth rates, right?
Oh, that's
Current adoption rates, and then overcoming future hurdles and technical hurdles.
If you look at if you look back from 2012 to 2016, this is an analog graph, so it's an exponential growth when it's straight, and so he's kind of straight lining it for a number of years. And I think what he's doing is starting to curve it flat when it runs into population limits, at a guess. And then the top line,
This is the block size.
Global adoption. Yeah, so he's got high, medium, and limited. And so those are three predictions. And high being, yeah.
This is transactions per second. This is the block size, and these are the throughputs, I guess.
Oh yeah, there's the fourth one that's failure. So that's the span of prediction.
This is doing nothing.
That's a whole span of prediction.
This flaccid line right here is like inaction.
That's we don't solve the one there.
Yes. This is not voting. If you don't vote, then anyway. Any other comments on that? Okay. In the news, this was posted to the group, I think, by our man Peter in South Africa, ex-filter regular participant. Hopefully he's listening. This is the Bitcoin computer. Have you guys seen this thing?
Yep.
21, the company 21 represents over 12% of all Bitcoin venture capital in the space. Huge investment. And this is their first product, which is a computer, like basically a Raspberry Pi kind of Linux box with the Bitcoin blockchain and mining software pre-configured on the device. And it's a platform with an API so that developers can build software on top of it. For the Internet of Things. Are you guys familiar with this Internet of Things where everything has an IP address? You know, your Coke can and your lock on your front door and everything else. And those things may need to exchange money, you know, small amounts of money in order to cooperate with one another. And so the vision is that this little computer will facilitate that. 1,000 flowers will bloom. What's interesting is, let's see, is it? Of course, this is the Bitcoin community. Everybody's got an opinion. This thing is retailing for $400, and immediately, like within minutes, somebody has got a breakdown of all the hardware components and how much they cost. And claims that you can build your own for $247.47. So sounds like a business opportunity to me. But anyway, just interesting social dynamics in the nerdy world of Bitcoin. I also thought it was interesting to mention this company, which has done this a long time ago. It's called BitSeed, and it's a Raspberry Pi based full Bitcoin node that you can buy from them and simply plug in the wall, and all of a sudden you're running the full Bitcoin node. And I won't go into too many details, but we need more Bitcoin nodes in order to ensure the democratization and the decentralization of Bitcoin in general. There has been a lot of centralization on the network, which means centralized systems can be co-opted. See as an example the Central Bank of the United States and every other. This outfit did something similar to 21, just put together a hardware package that had everything built in, so you could just plug it in and you've got Bitcoin running. Right out of it.
It's almost a charitable action, right? Because there's no real incentive.
That's correct. Yes, and that's one of the, yeah.
I thought that 21 would actually take also the role of a miner, so you would actually, by running it, you would also be getting some small credit.
Yes, they're trying to solve that problem. Yeah,
because that way you really have an incentive of really operating
yes,
it.
that's a great point.
I heard that they were going to do it on your phone.
Yeah, that's the vision.
So you just have it.
They want this little computer, this little chip running in everything.
Does the I don't know the logics of that, because isn't Bitcoin mining all about electricity, cheap electricity? If you're running on your phone, it's about the most expensive electricity you can get. It's going to kill your smartphone.
Well, I don't know. I mean, yeah,
How much it takes. If you do something, there are economies of scale in distributed anything, right?
Mhm.
And if you only need a teeny tiny bit of that, of a billion iPhones, you've got an effective supercomputer or an effective distributed power supply.
but if it ruins my battery power, I'm turning it
Yeah,
off.
you definitely.
Unless it's making me like 10 Bitcoins, I'm like, whoa.
That's the other thing, is it does get more efficient over time because they release a smaller chip, more powerful chip. So,
Sure. All right, let's we're a little bit behind, so I'm gonna push us right along. Yeah, let's talk about this story. This one I think was posted by you, Miriam. 9 massive banks just teamed up to take the technology behind Bitcoin mainstream. The technology behind Bitcoin is referred to as blockchain technology. You might have heard that here or there. Here's the list of the banks: Barclays, Credit Suisse, JP Morgan, RBS, UBS. Those are some big hitters. And but I don't know, I'd be interested in people's opinions on this. Maybe I should open it up.
Goldman Sachs, by the way.
Goldman Sachs,
It's
are they
not
in
in
there?
that article, but they're in.
Oh, but
There's a bit on there. Reports that
Goldman Sachs are also involved.
oh yeah.
Why aren't they in the list of everyone else? Are they? Anyway. I don't know. What do you guys think about this?
Exactly.
We are now in the Bitcoin banks discussion. So what you think banks can benefit from Bitcoin? You think they like Bitcoin, don't like Bitcoin, just like the blockchain?
What exactly are they doing?
Yes.
Well, that's a good question. It's not entirely clear. It's kind of like when the president.
That's a protocol. That's regulation. So they want to
Yeah. Yep. I think.
they wouldn't get involved.
Yep. I think you're right about that.
Banks are currently spending a lot of money on
Yeah.
remittances. Huge
Yeah.
expense for them, trading between banks, trading between each other.
Mm-hmm.
The technology they're using is super old, so they have.
True. Yeah, that's the flip side. Is there blockchain technology theoretically could very much lower the clearing costs and could allow banks that are in different jurisdictions or across borders cooperate more according to the dictates of the blockchain as opposed to jurisdictional differences. So it kind of takes man-made law, man-made jurisdiction out of the equation, kind of encapsulates it in code. And so things just happen automatically when things are traveling across borders. And money may not get trapped in places. I mean, everybody complains about Western Union, but we still haven't solved the remittance problem with Bitcoin, and it's because it's a hard problem. You know, moving money around the world and making sure that your balance of accounts are safe and secure and up to date and working is tricky business. Before I started working on Bitcoin, I worked for a global payments company, and we were constantly struggling with problems expatriating profits for our clients. We had these big gaming companies, and they'd make huge profits in Brazil, but they couldn't take the money out of Brazil without paying like a 38% tax or something. So these are, you know, and you know, it affects the poor, you know, and it looks like they're doing it maliciously. Oh, like you try and send Western Union money to Zimbabwe, and you know, it costs 30%. Well, and the people in Zimbabwe are poor, so they're sticking it to the poor people. But the problem is that the Zimbabwe currency is so volatile that it's very difficult to account for that aspect of the problem and still deliver money in a profitable way, which they're in the business of being profitable. So
this isn't necessarily them supporting Bitcoin. They want their own Bitcoin that they can use for their banking. That's what they're saying. But blockchain is generic technology. Doesn't mean they're going to use Bitcoin.
That's right.
So really, they just want a way to transact for themselves.
Right.
It doesn't really affect Bitcoin necessarily at all.
But
because there's so many blockchain.
Right.
Alternative currencies.
Couldn't they just make their own blockchain?
Well, what's interesting is, you know, a blockchain is a very expensive, very slow database. That's all it is.
It's decentralized.
Right, but it's decentralized. That's the benefit of it. But all these banks could do their own. They don't need a blockchain to keep a balance of account in and amongst themselves. They could.
They don't trust each other.
Right, unless they don't trust each other. Right. Well, and then maybe they want to open it up to, you know, all the banks in the world. You know, these guys are going to build it, but maybe they want to do remittances in Zimbabwe, and they don't have a bank in Zimbabwe, but they want to open up that channel. But the interesting thing about that is, and I've made this point before, it's a subtle point, but Bitcoin, or I'm sorry, the blockchain is useless without a token of value to go with it. Because it's the incentive to earn the token that creates the security for what they're doing. That's what allows it to be trustless. So you need some sort of token. If it's not Bitcoin, it's got to be JP Morgan coin, or whatever they want to call it. And there's got to be a large number of entities mining that coin for it to be truly decentralized and trustless. As soon as it's...
In this case, though, it's kind of an exception where you don't need a token, because under the agreement, they could all just say, we're all going to provide some hashing power, right? Because,
right. But then they could just do it without a blockchain if they were already agreeing.
well, yeah, well, that's like Swift network, right? And
Yeah.
and it's really expensive and slow because it's off. So, and that's kind of like the first question of what value is Bitcoin, is that it's like the internet of money, right? It's any one bank can transact with each other directly without needing to hop through the trust.
Yeah.
And those,
Yes.
those trust relationships between banks have been eroding badly in the last several years.
All right, I got some more bank stuff for you guys. Bank of America files patent for cryptocurrency wire transfer system. I thought this was kind of good. For some customers, it may be desirable to conduct a foreign wire transfer in less time than what current foreign wire transfer systems allow.
Oh, really?
Yes, if that's not the understatement of the year. Like, I think I prefer to have my money like sooner rather than later. I mean, that's just me. Yeah, I don't know, it might be crazy, you know. But anyway, I actually took a look at this patent. You can follow this link and take a look at the patent. I'm not a fan of patents anyway, especially software patents. I think it's like a quagmire. This one is just a case in point as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it's just basically, it basically describes Bitcoin itself, really. You know, I mean, you're sending money from one place on Earth to another place on Earth. They've got a few extra bells and whistles using cryptocurrency markets, and they name some of them in the patent, which is interesting. OKCoin, Bitstamp, BTC China, integrating with those exchanges in order to facilitate international wire transfers. But
So basically saying we want you guys to pay us for the privilege of doing what.
Yeah, I mean, they've created some sort of patent, some kind of technology they want to license that really just looks like a series of API calls to all of these exchanges. Right. So yeah, we want to patent like a.
They're claiming that they were the originators. That's the only way that this can work.
Yeah, yeah. For this particular thing that they're talking about.
Are they talking about blockchain though?
They're using
No, they're talking about.
they're talking.
Cryptocurrency. Anybody can create their own cryptocurrency.
I think they're talking about using existing cryptocurrency to facilitate successful wire transfers in around different global jurisdictions. So rather than going through the old network of we know this bank and they know that bank and that bank knows their customer and
Right, but are they using Bitcoin or some other?
I have to take a look again at the. I think they just talk about using cryptocurrencies, but I mean these.
It says there Litecoin repo.com.
Gotcha.
So it's got, for it to pass the patent test, it has to be non-obvious. Right? And there can't be anything prior that looks like this. So this could be turned over if the community assembles pretty quickly.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
Or anything I could do to turn it over, but it does not go through.
Well, it doesn't actually take as much as you think. There was, I think it's a fun story. There was an attempt at patenting multimedia in the early 90s, and an encyclopedia company said, we are filing a patent for using a database to access audio, video, graphics, animation, or text. Can you imagine that you would have to pay a license right now to use the web every single time? What is the web, right? An interface to a database. So a group of us in that very obscure field of interactive media in the early 90s went, no freaking way.
Yeah.
And the patent office had already issued the patent. And the company who got it went to the big multimedia show and basically handed out contracts and made a big announcement and said, okay, you guys, if you sign up with us now, it'll only be $1 a disc, and if you don't, it'll be $3 a disc. It was discs in those days, right? But they patented for multimedia. We said, no freaking way, and in 6 months, we overturned the patent.
Do we want them just saying no?
You need to.
How many lawyers did you have to hire?
None.
No?
No lawyers, no. You have to prove that it's obvious. It was already obvious.
But who does the proving?
The community does.
Just by
You just overwhelm the patent office with evidence. You say, this is not, often it'll come through association, like a foundation or two professionals, and then you overturn it. You say, the patent office will take it under review. They don't like doing that. This is an application, right? This is not a, it's not.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's been
So
granted.
if it hasn't, yeah, they filed it.
Patent
that
file.
Yeah, okay, so we just need to let the US Patent and Trademark Office know this should not be printed. It's not novel, it's not unobvious, and then it goes away.
Gotcha.
But even if they're trying to file a patent for Bitcoin, it's pointless. Even if they successfully patent it and do whatever, who are they going to sue and what court are they going to go to?
Right. It's different than an actual Bitcoin though. It's like a wire transfer.
This is
Ripple
something-
can take this, no problem. Highly funded. But
Yeah.
Ripple does this.
That's what I'm gonna say. They're essentially saying we made Ripple.
Yes, so that needs to be said, and the reason it does is because who works at the US Patent and Trademark Office are not people who are really technologically astute at all.
That's really stupid.
It is really
That's right.
stupid, and it is the way it is. That's why Gary was saying software patents are really in name, because we don't have the competence inside that agency to review it well. They're just not there.
Right.
So.
Well, I'm going to submit the audio from this meeting as the first refutation of this patent. So,
As far as Bitcoin is concerned, though, no matter what they do and no matter what patent they file, I don't see.
yeah, there's nobody to sue.
Bitcoin. There's nobody to sue. There's no courts. There's no jurisdiction. There's no.
Yes,
Yeah,
you're right.
it's kind of.
Bitcoin says, sue me. Good try. Okay, this is a pretty interesting story. Big Australian banks stun Bitcoin companies by closing their accounts.
We've seen that somewhere.
Yeah, it's happened before.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because You know, there's a lot of backroom dealings and in the corridors of power in Australia, because the first thing that happened was they said that that Bitcoin was subject to value-added tax or something like that, and so you were taxed twice, like once when you bought the item and once when you bought Bitcoin. There was a double tax situation which made retail use of Bitcoin basically impossible in Australia. And there were some high-profile companies that left Australia, went to the UK. The UK government was like, "Hey, we're the Bitcoin capital of the world. Come set up your business in the UK." Shortly before they wanted a backdoor on all cryptography, but that's another story. Then they rescinded that law, is what my understanding was. They stopped the double tax situation, and now there's this. So apparently it's no fun to have a Bitcoin company in Australia because you can't have a bank account. And we're still living in this world where you've got to move money between Bitcoin and fiat currency. Companies that have a Bitcoin income still usually have to pay some bills in this case, Australian dollars.
That's pretty sad, because when you look on the Bitcoin net that you pull up, a lot of activity is in Australia.
Yeah, there's a lot of smart people down there. When we went to Inside Bitcoins in Singapore, there was a huge contingent from Australia.
I think it's actually 84 banks in Australia.
Yeah, they just close ranks.
Australia is known for like the country with the highest fees for using doing money transfers using your ATM abroad, ATM card abroad. So this
tends to happen with monopolies, right? You get poor service for the highest cost, right?
Ironic.
So Scott, go down and start another bank number 5 down there, man. What's the delay? I do hear a lot of people complaining, like in Bali. Oh, it cost me $8 to get 2 million rupiah out of the ATM.
that's those shreds.
Yeah, that ain't cool.
You do it 3 times.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm against that. Okay, somebody write that down. Okay, here's a good one for you. The Bank of England's chief economist says cryptocurrency is going to be great for the cashless future of the world of below zero interest rates. Negative interest rates is what he sees cryptocurrencies aiding with. Are you guys familiar with the overnight funds rate in the States and every central bank around the world? They set the interest rates for the country. It's part of the monetary policy. And since the global financial crisis, at least in the States, and other central banks around the world follow suit with the States, it's been near zero. So this is why in your savings account you get like 0.8% on your savings, right? That's been the case since 2008. It represents hundreds of millions of dollars in lost interest payments to savers everywhere. It's kind of like a war on savings, but it's supposed to spur the economy, right? It's supposed to encourage people to borrow and start a new company. There's all kinds of skewed incentives around that. I won't even go into details. That hasn't happened, and that's why the world is really on the verge of another global slowdown with central banks nowhere to go but beneath zero. But do you guys know why banks can't go below zero? Or first of all, do you know how they go below zero in the first place? How do you get a negative interest rate? Yeah, well, yeah, they like today you had $100 in your bank account, and tomorrow you have $98 in your bank account.
And you're going to put it there? Yeah, right.
Right. Well, that's where cryptocurrency comes in. Because if you don't have cash, then you have to put it with the bank, and then that gives the bank the ability to charge fees or set up a negative interest rate.
Collaborating on the blockchain, putting it together is very obvious.
I'm trying to understand. I don't
Well
understand
said.
this, because if say they're printing money off cryptocurrency, what's the concept of putting a cryptocurrency in a bank account? Because wallets, right? So digital wallets.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think it's short-sighted on as smart as this chief economist is probably. He obviously doesn't understand that there is the capability using cryptocurrency to take your money out of the bank and have sovereignty over your own.
He's saying state-backed digital currency.
State-backed.
Yeah, they will invent their currency which you won't have wallets on your computer.
Right, right.
So it's like technical gold, but it's back for digital crypto.
Right, they're using
limiting the supply.
Yeah, they're using the technology, but the government always has the private keys.
So they're trying to essentially make a fiat version of an altcoin.
Exactly.
That's really
Yes.
hard. Nobody's gonna use it.
Yeah.
I mean, if they
It's going to be regulated that way to use it. It's not like-
Right, if you have to pay your taxes then you'll use it.
I guess
And-
I'll spend enough Bitcoin to pay my taxes, and then I'll not spend any more Bitcoin. I'll buy their currency with it.
Yeah, well, we've talked many times on Tuesday night about the war on cash, and it's definitely a thing. And even though I'm a huge fan of Bitcoin, I think there should always be cash. Like cash should exist in some form. Yeah, some sort of physical representation that you can have on your person. Well, for this very reason. Yeah.
You would never have all your money in cash. I mean, no one does.
Yet.
I think my grandmother does.
If you're poor enough, it will be.
Did you grow up in a place that had like currency problems, banking problems?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
big time. But my grandmother still puts her money under the pillow.
And she's probably done well.
We're in a country where it's 20%
Yeah. Yeah, it's not going to happen here anytime soon. Those beautiful pink 100,000 rupiah notes aren't going anywhere fast. But yeah, there always needs to be some form of personal sovereignty over the wealth that is yours. And what he's suggesting is that we move to a world where the government has the keys for your bank account.
But that would require that they have a private key.
Yes.
If they control the currency, the private key is yours. They have no. All
Right,
they do is say, assuming that you have to sign up using your identity, they can say you own that account, and that's all you can do.
Yeah, I mean it's just a matter of who has if you have the keys and they don't, then you have it. If you both have the keys, then you don't have it. If they have the keys, then you don't have it. Unfortunately, this kind of nuanced thinking is unavailable to wide swaths of the global population, and this could happen unbeknownst to most people on planet Earth. So everybody go home tonight and post on your Facebook for the benefit of all your friends so that this does not happen. That's the PSA for tonight. Okay, here's another bit of news that was posted to the group. Bitcoin is officially a commodity, according to U.S. regulator, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. Good news, bad news?
Then you're going to tax it.
Well, what it means is these are the guys that regulate derivatives. They actually shut down a company that was trading in Bitcoin futures because they hadn't filed the proper paperwork with the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. It's supposed to protect consumers, but it's really just a huge regulatory hurdle for upstarts. So in my opinion, we don't need this kind of stuff yet. Anybody who's buying Bitcoin derivatives should know they're doing it at their own risk. See what kind of innovation is possible. If you need a $200,000 license to open up a Bitcoin futures platform, then it's not going to be somebody in their basement. It's going to be one of those 9 banks doing it.
Well, one of these Wall Streeters, Silicon Valley firms,
Yeah.
are getting really excited about what's possible in this.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's lo and behold, they call it a commodity, and then they do their first enforcement case. So it's exciting. And I'm always really fascinated. When I first started looking at Bitcoin, we never got press in the New York Times. I mean, you just didn't. We were just totally ignored by the mainstream everything. So it's really cool to see when, even when it's bad press, it's just kind of interesting to see the likes of the New York Times talking about Bitcoin. But this is an op-ed where they basically talk about, why don't we just leave Bitcoin alone? Let it flourish. Let it bump its head a few times. Let it make a few mistakes. Let some people lose some money, because in the end, that's how innovation happens. And it's a little cradle of a thing right now. To impose burdens on it could really stifle it. You can imagine. There's a good analogy to the automobile industry, where the train industry wanted to mandate that every car needed to have someone out front waving a red flag so that nobody got hurt out in front of the car. So they passed some kind of regulation that somebody in front of every automobile there had to be a person waving a red flag. Like that's how absurd regulation can be, and you can see that kind of thing kind of stifling innovation in this space as well. So good that the New York Times is coming out on that side. Okay, I'm going to make this the last story of the night. We're just about at the end of our time. But for those of you who are just here for the first time, we have talked a lot about Greece. It was really fascinating to watch Greece through the lens of Bitcoin, seeing all those people suffer through the Greece sovereign debt crisis. Them having a new government, and that new government like doing battle with the European Union, and then them holding a referendum on the European Union's demands, and then the Greek people, unequivocally saying that we don't want austerity measures. We want to default on our loans, and then the government just rolling over on all of their campaign promises and succumbing to EU pressure to adopt even stricter austerity measures than they voted on. So the latest in the better than soap opera drama that is Greece, Tsipras, the man that's ahead of the party that was elected back in January and went through all of this drama, called a snap election as a referendum on his own presidency, and he was reelected. So, yeah.
So are the Greeks stupid, or did they break the vote?
Well, this story basically says that people are just totally feel disenfranchised. Like they don't even think the vote even matters anymore. They interview some guy who runs a newspaper stand, and he said, I've had 50 people buy newspapers from me this morning, and none of them are even talking about the election because it's just a farce. I mean, Greece, the cradle of democracy, I think the people there think democracy is dead because they've held these votes. I mean, they had the original vote where they put in power the party that said we're going to end austerity, right? And then they had another vote that said, that party put in front of the people and said, do we really want to turn down this bailout? Do we really want to stick to our guns? Should we stick to our campaign promises? And the electorate said yes, we don't want to accept that austerity. And then when they went back to the bargaining table, they just totally rolled over. I mean, I don't know if they had naked pictures of them or what, but it was really like kind of weird that they went and accepted a deal that was worse than they bothered to have an election on.
Do you remember the time you got hearing? I'll post.
Oh yeah.
I will post
The power of
Yeah,
democracy of the people.
Yeah, you'll
Yes,
see.
that's we'll post that.
Because the new group always does that. They make promises, and it then becomes worse than it was before.
Yeah.
There's an interesting phenomenon when it comes to voting that actually I just learned about from Asha in Singapore. Whenever there's a new election, the PAP party, the guys in charge, everyone's gonna be like, fuck those guys, that guy's awesome, they did do awesome for us. Everyone talks a big game and then votes PAP. Because, and then you ask them at the end, why did you vote for the new guy? Because you said you hate this guy. I'm like, yeah, but they're safe, and like we know that they've been in charge for so long, they probably get in this risk with the new guy. Like people don't dig change. Especially
Singapore's one party system for 50 years. So there's no credible alternative to vote.
Exactly,
That's the
yeah.
problem. There really is no credible objective.
I guess that's it.
You're so red right now. Don't worry, it's okay. Don't worry. Is that the did I just get red? Was that my signal from the peanut gallery? Hey, cut it off, cut it off. Your time is up. All right, I can take a hint, Christine. I get it. My time is up. Anyway, thank you guys for coming. We do this every Tuesday night at 5 o'clock. I hope you guys had fun, and I hope you come back next time. Oh, and by the way, in between now and next week, check out the Facebook group and put something up there that we can talk about. Yes. All right. Thanks, guys.